Long live the king. Hey everyone, how's it? Kiyakahi Matsumoto here, presenting to you all another honest movie review, this time around of Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Now, just as a disclaimer, I am not a huge Godzilla fan. In fact, I am a total newbie. But thankfully, when I went to go see the film the first time around when it premiered, I had my best friend on the island with me who was helping fill me in on several bits of the Godzilla lore and the backstory, etc., while the movie was playing, which is majorly helpful. So, big shout out to him because he is a lifelong and massive Godzilla fan himself. To summarize, despite the use of tropes that are starting to get a bit stale, along with a lack of character development and believable acting by half the film's primary cast, I have to be honest, this film was quite fun. It was still a visually stimulating monster/catastrophe movie that was as engaging as it was entertaining. Kyle Chandler stars as Mark Russell, an animal behavior and communications specialist and former Monarch employee who holds a grudge against the Titans after the San Francisco incident involving Godzilla 5 years prior. Vera Farmiga portrays Dr. Emma Russell, a paleobiologist and Mark's ex-wife, who feels that mankind and Titans can coexist, and has completed a method to communicate with the giant beasts. Millie Bobby Brown stars as Madison, Maddie Russell, Mark and Emma's daughter, who is academically gifted in science but would prefer a normal life as opposed to her current one. Also rounding out the main cast are Bradley Whitford as Dr. Rick Stanton, Monarch's cryptosonographer, Sally Hawkins as Dr. Vivian Graham, Monarch's paleozoologist and second in command, Charles Dance as Alan Jonah, a former British Army colonel and MI6 agent turned eco-terrorist who is obsessed with restoring the natural order to the world. Thomas Middleditch stars as Dr. Sam Coleman, Monarch's Director of Technology. Aisha Hind stars as Colonel Diane Foster, a U.S. Army officer and leader of the G-Team, Monarch's Special Forces military group for Titan incidents. O'Shea Jackson Jr. stars as Jackson Barnes, a Chief Warrant Officer and G-Team member. David Strathairn as Admiral William Stentz, a U.S. Navy officer who was previously in charge of tracking the Mutos. Ken Watanabe as Dr. Ishiro Sorizawa, Monarch's de facto leader and high-ranking scientist. And finally, Zhang Ziyi as Dr. Eileen Chen, a mythologist who is tasked to uncover the Titans' backgrounds throughout history. She also portrays Eileen's twin sister, Dr. Ling Chen. The film is set 5 years after Godzilla's fight with the Mutos. Dr. Emma Russell works for the cryptozoological organization Monarch and just finished repairing and modifying the Orca, a device that her and her ex-husband Mark worked on several years prior, which can now, thanks to her tweaks, can emit frequencies that can alter the behavior and influence the giant superspecies known as Titans. She successfully uses it to calm down a larva they call Mothra, before their group and operation is interrupted by Alan Jonah, who slaughters her team and takes her and her daughter Madison captive. Shortly after, Doctors Ishiro Serizawa and Vivian Graham approach Mark and inform him of what had happened, convincing him to help them track down Emma and Maddie. Alan Jonah's group unleashes a three-headed winged beast in Antarctica nicknamed Monster Zero, and Godzilla engages it in combat before Monster Zero flies off. Eventually, Monster Zero, later revealed to be Ghidorah, an ancient planet-destroying alien, wakes the other Titans from their slumber, unleashing havoc on the world with their help. With the fate of the Earth hanging in the balance, Monarch aids Godzilla in waging all-out war on Ghidorah, resulting in a massive clash of the Titans, with Godzilla, Mothra, and the humans on one side of the battle, with Ghidorah and Rodan on the other. Now again, as a disclaimer, I'm a total newbie to the franchise, and this was my first Godzilla film ever. But again, thankfully my best friend was sitting right there to help me through everything, so I should be relatively caught up. That said, I thoroughly enjoyed this film as a whole, to my surprise, and there were several individual aspects of it that I really did like. First of all, the special effects in this film were very well done. They felt believable and realistic for the most part, and the action sequences were also done well as well. No wordplay intended. And the sense of peril was present and could be felt whenever the humans were in the range of the fighting Titans. And based on what my friend told me, there were several references to previous Godzilla films, both modern and classic, which sets the stage even for future films in the franchise via the use of foreshadowing, which is a nice touch. The diverse casting choice was also mostly well done, with the most natural acting performances coming from Charles Dance, Aisha Hinds, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ken Watanabe, and Zhang Ziyi. And speaking of which, Zhang Ziyi had the funniest one-liners in the movie. Her less than 5-word lines had the audience cracking up laughing, including myself. And to be honest, the film's soundtrack wasn't too shabby either, and it had just enough comical moments to keep things grounded in the midst of all the chaos. But, as always with movies, this film has a number of issues present that could have been improved upon or avoided. For one, while the action sequences and the CGI did feel realistic for the most part, there were moments in the movie that absolutely defied the laws of physics. For example, there's a scene in the movie that shows Godzilla somehow standing or floating next to a submarine in the ocean, which has a rough average depth of about 12,100 feet. Now, the water level seems to be at Godzilla's hips, and old Godzilla is just shy of 400 feet tall, and based on an eyeball estimate, probably weighs around 90,000 tons. So, how is that even possible? That should not be even remotely possible for a beast of his size. Or, an even better example is Madison Russell somehow avoiding Ghidorah's yellow electricity blasts. Considering that these electricity blasts greatly resemble lightning, which has a rough average speed of 220 million miles per hour, by the way, she would need to have been moving at least as fast as the bolts in order to dodge them. Now, I know this is a fantasy monster film, and yes, for the most part, the blasts were not aimed directly at her, but you need to be grounded in some sense of realism in order to keep things believable, even for something like this. Another thing that I really did not care for about this movie is that they're using tropes that are starting to get stale already. Specifically, the bringing balance to the planet or world, whatever, by wiping out a ton of life theme. I mean, that people didn't start jumping on that bandwagon until Avengers Infinity War hit with Thanos and whatnot, like I said in my Aladdin review, and they're doing it again here. Another thing is, certain characters felt like they were either overacting or trying too hard when it came to the more dramatic and serious moments in the film. Well, not really serious, but more emotional. You get the point. Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown are two such examples. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Vera Farmiga, but in this one, I just didn't feel it. And same thing goes with Millie Bobby Brown, but to be fair, I am cutting her a little slack because she's still just a kid. And lastly, the plot did feel a little bit thin and didn't have a whole lot of substance to it. I understand that this is a monster/catastrophe film and people don't go to these kinds of movies to see human, their drama, whatever. They're going to see catastrophe, carnage, destruction, etc. But in order for me to avoid bias as much as possible in my reviews, I have to take these kinds of things into account and not overlook them just because I'm a fan of the franchise. It's impossible to completely eliminate bias, but this is how I do it as much as possible. Even with the MCU, the DC films, I'm a huge comic book nut, but if the plot doesn't, if these kinds of things I notice, I can't just ignore it simply because I like the movie itself. I have to mark it down. This is how I keep myself grounded and keep myself honest. All in all, despite its flaws, director Michael Dougherty delivered a visual spectacle and a good monster flick that generally kept the spirit of the franchise's past alive, while also modernizing it and paving the way for the future. It was engaging, entertaining, and kept people on the edges of their seats, and it did not shy away from collateral damage or casualties, which was a nice touch. So, based on quality, I give this film an 8 out of 10, but based on personal enjoyment, it's somewhere between an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Well done to everyone involved. So, that's it for my honest review on Godzilla King of the Monsters. I hope this answers any and all questions you may have, and if not, please feel free to shoot me a comment down below, but please keep it civil. And again, you don't have to agree with my opinions. This is just what I saw and what I observed in the movie itself. And again, go out and give it a shot. You might like it, and you might not. It's all really up to you. It's subjective. So, thanks again for watching. I hope this answers any and all questions you may have again, and I will see everybody hopefully in my next review, which features Dark Phoenix. So have a great day or evening, depending on what time zone you're in. Take care. Catch you later.